Hi, everyone, and welcome to Change Chats, the podcast to navigating your change management career. My name is Judith Bueving, and I am your host today. And today we are here with Prachi Jain. She is a fellow and my first millennial guest on the show. When I looked up millennials on ChatGPT, it was entitled Dreamers, Avocado Toast Addicts, Living in their parents' basements, and caffeine dependent.
We are probably the voice note generation, avoiding calls at all costs. I think that's more us.
Yes, that is very true. We are in this episode discussing Prachi's career trajectory in change management. She is leading digital transformation. She is an expert in change management and AI and cross-cultural projects, global projects as well. And I want to use this episode to touch on the sabbatical that you took and why it was so good for you and how you continue to be a millennial change management powerhouse. I know a lot has happened in the last couple of months. Happy summer, happy move. You also just got promoted to manager. And so the first thing is, how was your sabbatical and why did you feel like you needed to take a sabbatical?
Yeah. So, first off, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. And I think we will cover some very interesting topics. To start off, how was my sabbatical? It's been 4 months since I came back, and it was many life changes. I think it was a bittersweet transition as well. I took 3.5 months off and I solo traveled across Southeast Asia. So I was in Vietnam, Thailand, and India. I did a month long yoga teacher training course as well, and I spent some time in a monastery. So that was really interesting. And I think the goal of going into the sabbatical was to step back, pause, and gain some clarity. And I wanted to step away from what I knew and try something different and expose myself to new experiences, new people, new insights, and get a different perception or perspective about my life and where I'm going and what I want to do. And I think the experiences I had during the sabbatical were so special and inspiring that I took a lot from it, and I'm implementing the insights that I learned from it now, and I've come back with a lot of clarity and strength as well, and insight. I'm happy to also dive deep into that shortly, but I think why I took a sabbatical is there was a point in the last year or so where I was feeling a bit stuck, and I felt also in my work felt repetitive, and I was not feeling fulfilled and lost a sense of direction of where I was going. I think I was focused on the next milestone, the next career goal, and the next achievement.
Yeah.
And I think since I was 18, I've never paused. I was studying or working constantly. I moved to Germany. There were so many things that happened. There was the master, then the next job, and the next job. I didn't take the time to pause and reflect. And I think it was so important where I reached a stage where I was like, okay, before I move ahead and move forward to my next career goal, it's a good time to just pause and reflect and see where I'm going and get clarity on the priorities and what really matters moving forward. And I think that is something I can really recommend to anyone considering a break. It could be any length of time that your life allows, but I think pausing is so meaningful and so valuable.
And did you feel like you needed the sabbatical for you to pause because otherwise you probably would not have paused?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, I think it was good to force myself to pause. And now, after the sabbatical, I don't think I need a long sabbatical again, because the
Hmm.
lessons I learned, I think I am now embedding these pauses into my daily life and my days and weeks, right? So that you don't need to reach a point where you have to take a long break. But at that point, I think a long break really helped because I was struggling to allow myself to pause, hit the brakes, and reduce that pressure or that need to achieve and do things, right? And I think that was a great time to then force myself to pause.
And so, what are some of the things that you build in right now that you learned from taking your sabbatical and
Hmm.
pausing and reflecting in your day to day work?
I think like what I've really built in, which it was hard for me to do before. I think during the sabbatical, when I learned some tools and methods during yoga and also time at the monastery, the tools of using your mind and breath to connect and be in the present moment, right? I think being
Yeah.
aware and in the moment is so important, because often I would notice myself thinking about something where in a conversation you are thinking about the next thing rather than being fully in there. So I think I've embedded a few small things. It's not really big, but even just 5 minutes to pause and breathe, come into the point of awareness so that you're not being reactive but responding to the situation that you're in. What's really helped is I've put some blocks into my calendar to take a break, go out for a walk, go in the sun, do some walking meetings when I can, and breathe and do something good for myself every day that brings me energy. If we don't set those boundaries or do something that brings us joy and energy, I think no one else is going to do it. So it's so important to prioritize that for yourself.
Yeah, nice. And
Hmm.
if you bring that back to the work in change and transformation, how would you say it has influenced your work with the client? Is there any practices that you bring from your sabbatical as well to the work?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, what I have really brought in is the calmness in situations at work. So, often, we are in our line of work, there's always tight deadlines and things to do, and, a lot of milestones to get to or deadlines to accomplish. And the change work that we do, I mean, I have also made sure that in the teams that I work with or the clients that I work with, I think we focus on what's really important, like reflecting on, okay, what's the priority here, and what are we aiming towards, rather
Yeah,
than just trying to do everything and say we need to do this and we need to accomplish everything. I think
right.
reflecting and asking these questions in meetings has really helped also to bring focus and clarity into the path forward.
Nice. Okay. And if you like look around in the practice, how people might see a sabbatical, what's the talk about it? Is it seen as something really good, or are people like,
Yeah.
why are you taking a sabbatical?
Yeah, I mean, I have to share an interesting story here because after my sabbatical, when I shared this story with an acquaintance I met, and I said, "Hey, I just got back from a sabbatical," and so on, and he really looked concerned, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh my God, is everything okay? Like, what happened? Why did you take a sabbatical?" Because he thought maybe I was sick or someone in my family was sick or maybe
Yeah.
something bad happened. And of course, sometimes you have to take a break for the not so fortunate events. That made me think that, yeah, maybe a sabbatical I've still perceived negative because people think that might affect their career adversely if you have a break in your career path. And
Yeah.
I think this also forces and pushes people to keep going and not take a break when they need to. And I think we really should normalize these pauses to reflect and gain clarity. It shows that you're strong and you know when to pause, and it only makes you a better and stronger professional.
Right.
So I think if I could recommend it or share something, it would be that really plan these breaks in your life and career, because career is so long. Like we were talking about, it's 40 years, hopefully, that we will still be in the workforce. And
Yeah.
it's a long way, so it's not a sprint, and allowing yourself to do that. And I feel like it's often a challenge with overachievers or people who are really ambitious and want to get ahead fast and by a certain age. There's this Forbes 30 under 30 and 40 under 40, so you feel like you have to achieve this by the time you're 30
Yeah.
and conquer the world. Life doesn't end after 30.
Right. There's so many years we still have to work. Your sabbatical was 3 months, I believe. Is that
Yeah.
right? So let's just put that into perspective. 3 months is nothing when you compare that to the entirety lifespan of your career that you have. Okay, so maybe we'll come back to the sabbatical a bit later because I do want to know a little bit the insights that you said that you had. But I'm also curious just to learn a little bit more about your career. You're
Mhm.
doing digital transformations and change management. What keeps you going in this kind of path? And do you see yourself in this line of work in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think why I came into this field was a mix of two things. I think sometimes, you choose a career and sometimes a career chooses you as well. So during university, I really enjoyed two subjects that I still remember was coding, and the other was organizational behavior and change management and leadership. So I think these subjects were really something that excited me, and I loved the complexity of like the technology aspect and the messiness of human behavior and psychology. And
Yeah.
so I did my master thesis in AI in recruiting. So back then I researched how AI is being used in the recruiting process. And that was back in 2018. And
Okay.
back then, AI tools were also like, there were already quite a lot of AI tools that were automating or augmenting the screening process, the scheduling process of recruiting.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the research and working on it. And a friend of mine, who's now also a colleague, who worked in change management back then told me about her work and what she does. And I thought that sounds very interesting. Could it combines technology and people and process into one, and the intersection of it is so interesting. Now I feel like it's just great to not just solve technical challenges but the human issues combined, which adds a level of uniqueness which I enjoy a lot. So that's why I've been in this career now for more than 6 years, and I like to be in this space of tech, human, and process. And
Right.
maybe I would continue. Maybe my roles might change in the next 5 to 10 years, but I continue around the same path because I'm passionate about human behavior and psychology in general, combined with technologies. What really motivates me and keeps me going is recently I had a conversation with a client who's an AI leader in the space,
Yeah.
an AI technology leader. He mentioned that, when it comes to AI technology and technology in general, we can manage it, and I think that's fine. But what we struggle with and what we need help with is how do we get people to adopt the technology? And that's what he was struggling with. Like, he's like, I don't know how to get my organization to adapt to the change and be excited or motivated about it, and how do we
Yeah.
solve that? And
Yeah.
that made me think that what we are doing now, it's actually so valuable and so needed, because organizations need that support of, how do I change the way that our employees or people think and work and collaborate in this space. That really motivates me, because what we do is important and valuable in the era that we are now in, where the change is so fast and so and non-stop that it's
Yeah.
hard to keep up and adapt quickly.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens in the next 5 years. I feel like it's going to be very different.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, and like what you're mentioning too, with the human aspect becomes more and more important because it's how are we going to interact with AI and how are we going to make the most of it? How are we going to take some of the fears away that people have about losing their jobs? I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities, but
Hmm.
it's one thing to think that as a change practitioner, it's another thing to get employees to actually see that. So I guess see the long term vision.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
we need to understand it's important to not be afraid of it, but to understand it. I think the fear goes
Mhm.
away once you understand the situation you're in. And I think a lot of people don't understand AI yet and how it works and what it does. And I think that
Right.
causes a lot of fear and uncertainty. So I
Yeah.
think we really need to focus on educating ourselves and our teams on what it really means. Because, of course, the unknown is always fearful, right? Once you understand it, I think, and then you are empowered to take action and do something about it.
And when you think about, because I can't believe that you've only been 6 years into this career. For the listeners out here, like I worked with Prachi, yeah, years back on the
Yeah.
global tech implementation, and actually Erica Adams, the first
Mm.
guest that I interviewed, yeah, she was both of our managers. Feel like you've been working for so much long.
It does feel like that, honestly, but
Yeah. Right. And when you were saying in the beginning, I'm just focused on the next thing, on the next thing. And now you're saying you have 6 years. I'm like, oh my God, you've done so much already. I'm so happy you took the sabbatical so you could reflect and be more peaceful and pace yourself a little bit. That's like a type of advice that you could give change professionals that are starting out in this field. Don't always look for the next thing, but I guess that's kind of hard when you're starting because
Mm.
you're, well, why not? Is there any other type of advice that you would give to change practitioners who are just starting out in the field?
Yeah, I think, when you're starting out, I think there's so much excitement and ambition and energy, right, for this. So I think it's really important to tune into that and really explore and try new things. And I would say, starting out, instead of prioritizing what topics you work on, prioritize who you work with. So work with
Hmm.
people who inspire you, who you think, I want to learn from that person, and I want to,
Yeah.
really get stronger. And I think when you choose the people you work with, the growth is so much faster. So I think prioritizing that, and like what you said, I mean, working with you and Eric on my first project, it's one of my favorite experiences, and I think I learned so much from that time, and I feel
Yeah.
like that also motivated and inspired me to continue in this path
Right.
forward. So I think that's so important. And also, I mean, it's all about skills right now, and there's a question a lot of what skills will be AI proof, or what are the skills that I need to know to remain in the workforce. I think when you think about skills, so when you're starting out and you want to think about what kind of skills do I want to grow, and I like this concept of skill stacking, which I learned a few years ago, also listening to a podcast. So skill stacking means that you combine any unique skills that someone else may not have easily. So you stack your skills in a way. So, for example, a unique skill stack could be technology, physics, and communication, because there are very few people who would have
Hmm.
these skills. So, I think skill stacking is something, it's an interesting concept to reflect on and think about what are the skills that I'm stacking in my career backpack, right? So, for me, for example, I think the unique skill set that I bring in is okay, change management expertise combined with technology. And now I'm also going into more design phase. I'm very interested and passionate about design and creativity. So
Yeah.
bringing that in, and communication. And I think these are also unique skill sets that combined together can be very powerful in the workforce.
Yeah, interesting. So it's like instead of one capability being a niche, you have
Hmm.
a portfolio of skills that can be considered a niche.
Exactly. Yeah. And it makes you very
Yeah.
irreplaceable, because then,
Right.
no one can bring your uniqueness. I mean, now with you,
Hmm.
you have a podcast with change expertise in different fields, and I think that's also a unique skill set that you bring to the table.
Right. Yeah. Very nice. Okay.
Mm.
So, okay, that's for the change practitioners that are just starting out. Now, let's talk about our generation, favorite generation ever, millennials. What would you recommend to us?
Yeah, I would say the millennial generation, I think we are very ambitious and we are very goal oriented. And I think it's a strength because we've grown without technology and with technology, and we have this understanding and balance, which I think is really great. So I would recommend to keep your goals, try new things, and do projects, but pace yourself and be patient in your journey, because there's a lot of pressure out there. And think pacing yourself is important to then achieving your goals. And as we said, yeah, it's a long career that we have to be part of.
Okay, so you're saying still have the goals, but the timeline
Hmm.
doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, or yeah, just pace yourself. So actually recently I'm trying this experiment for myself that
Okay.
I because I always had many goals, and I think you and I relate to this. We are both very planned, and I always, every quarter I have a set of goals that I want to achieve, and I track them in my Notion and so on. And now I'm trying this experiment for the next few months, is that I'm not going to have any goals.
Ooh,
And it sounds, yeah, it sounds a bit scary to me, honestly.
yeah. I don't know if I agree with this thing, but go ahead.
No, but hear me out. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
don't have any goals, just look for what brings you energy and joy, and just
Hmm.
do that. But not because you want to achieve a goal, but because you enjoy it and you're excited about it. So when
Hmm.
I did this thought experiment with myself, like, okay, what would it look like if I didn't have any goals, because it's such a new concept for me. But I think that gave me a lot of ease and reduced some pressure, because I was like, yeah, okay, I can still do things that I want to do because I'm excited about them, and I it gives me energy, but not because I need to achieve this goal in 2 months, so I have to take these actions, because that
Right.
puts more pressure and maybe sucks the joy out of it.
Right. Okay. So not setting goals, but then is there a point at which you reflect and like these are the things
Yeah.
that brought me joy and maybe I achieved the goal? Does that work?
Yeah, I know that's always in the back of my head. But at the end of the week, I do like to just reflect. I have this calendar actually in my notes where I write down the good things that happened, and I reflect on what gives me energy, what felt good. And I actually call it the museum days. So I like this concept a lot, because at the end of the month or during the week, I write down, okay, which were the moments that brought me a lot of joy and energy during my week, that at the end of my life, if there was a museum about me, and if someone saw the museum of Prachi, what are the moments that they would see? And so I really write those moments down. Actually, it's a concept I learned from another author. I have to think of the name of it, but it's the
Yeah.
museum days. And I love that because it forces me to reflect on and acknowledge the good things that happen. I'm like, wow, okay, I've done a lot, and there are some really good moments, and then I can see patterns of what actually gives me joy, and do more of that, those in the future. And at the end of the year, I think it's
Yeah.
a great assessment, or like a documentation of everything I did in that year, and it gives me a lot of joy to think about, okay, yes, I used my time well, and I did things that brought me joy. And if I see months where there was not much that gave me joy, I would be like, okay, why was that, and what was I really focusing on,
Your
and how
goals.
I yeah.
Throw them all out of the windows, those goals.
Yeah, because people are afraid that if you don't have goals, you might become lazy or complacent. But I think that's not true. I feel like there's an internal motivation that comes when you do things that bring you joy and excite you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So maybe the advice also is for people generally to take a sabbatical because would you say that these insights also came from that? Going back to the
Yeah.
insights that we said we would address. Yeah. Share a little bit more about some of the insights.
I feel like it's not that I came back a different person from the sabbatical, but I my perspective changed a lot about a lot of things. And so I think also the time at the monastery, where if I can share like a story around that, because when I was there, I mean, it was a very peaceful place up in the mountains, and everything was perfect and amazing. And we had a routine where you'd meditate with the monks and you follow their routine. You wake up and have breakfast and have meditation session and so on. So it was a schedule you follow. It was very peaceful. But I noticed also that in that external environment, which was perfect, I was still not happy, or my mind was still, you know, looking for it was racing, maybe not accepting what is, but trying to change what is. Maybe this could be better, or maybe, the
Yeah.
food could be better, or you're focused on the discomforts around you rather than focused on what truly matters, which is that you're in a beautiful place with great people around you. And so I asked one of the monks as well in the session. I was like, why is my mind constantly racing and I'm not able to be in peace? Because I noticed that this was happening also during work and so on, where your mind is either looking for perfection, judgment, or comparison, right? I think these are things that we struggle with a lot these
Yeah.
days, also in the phase of social media, where you're constantly exposed by others and their lives, and
Yeah.
compare yourselves to them. So
Yeah.
I think what he said and what really stuck with me was like, when this happens, just allow yourself to pause and do nothing, because we try to do a lot. We think that when we don't feel good, we have to, I don't know, go to a spa or do something that would make us feel good. But I think in that moment he said, okay, just be with that feeling and just observe without judgment, without trying to change anything, and just observe and allow yourself to feel that with compassion and acceptance.
Hmm.
And that was great, because when I was just there and allowing myself to be, then there was a sense of calm and peace. And he
Right.
said, you don't have to do anything outside of yourself to feel calm. Like, the feeling of calmness and peace is right here where you are. You just have to be and pause. And I think this lesson of pausing and slowing down is something that I really took with me, because we are always rushing to the next thing and trying to move ahead and achieve. But I think slowing down is so key. There's this quote that also really that I remind myself a lot: nature never rushes but accomplishes everything, right? And I think in German also there's a similar quote which I really like, is du musst dich langsam beeilen, which is that you should hurry slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's a literal translation, is the slower you go, I think you can achieve fast results, but you don't need to go fast as
Right.
well. So slowing down, accepting where you are
Yeah.
rather than trying to change things, and knowing that you don't have to do anything to prove yourself or to be good enough for what you want to be. And I think these are lessons that I really took with me, and I remind myself when I go back to old patterns where I feel, okay, how can I slow down and how can I allow myself to be? Because even just breathing, like breathing is so important that we often forget and
Yeah.
we are breathing unconsciously all the time. But I think this really helps. And when I'm feeling tired, or when I in between work meetings and so on, I also take just 5 minutes to breathe deeply
Yeah.
and slow down,
Yeah.
and that changes completely how I feel and how I then show up for others. And I think that is so valuable.
Yeah, I use a meditation app where you
Hmm.
can use if you just want a 1 minute. If you're like, I only have a minute, you can
Yeah.
do like a minute breathing session. You can
Yeah.
make it as short and as long as it's a really busy day. Still build in
Hmm.
those 3 minutes or those 2 minutes, and I'm just closing my eyes. I'm like doing deep breaths. Yeah, I think it helps. It helps a lot. It helps to regulate
Yeah.
your stress, your emotions, your thoughts.
System, right? Because we are a lot in that fight mode when we are stressed, and it can affect our health. But activating that calming or activating the parasympathetic nervous system, right? And
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to slow down can be so powerful.
Yeah.
So I agree, but it's good because before I don't know if you had the tendency, but before even meditation became a goal where I felt like I have to meditate for 15 minutes every day. But and it's the wrong approach. It's a tool that you use when you need it. That becomes a goal again, then it defeats the purpose of it. So as you said, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, it's even great.
Yeah, I see it more as, oh, I need it now, and really looking forward to just close my eyes for 10 minutes and have someone walk me through a meditation. I do think be in the beginning, when you're trying to establish a routine, it can help have goals, but you should release them quickly. If they don't serve you well, you need to look into something else. So, okay. Thinking about inspiration or someone in the field, practitioners or leaders in your practice that you look up to and that's a role model.
I think I learn from every colleague and person that I've worked with in the past. And if I were to choose one, it's hard to choose one role model because everyone teaches you something. Colleagues and teammates who have worked with on projects, I find the Gen Zs, people who have been in the career for so long, even our clients that we worked with, it's hard for me to choose one person. I've learned qualities from every colleague that I've interacted with and leaders today. I feel like women, we work with a lot of women as well, I think, in our field. And it's
Yeah.
great to see women that really manage their kids and life and family and still have managed to have a career. And I think that's so inspiring to show that it is possible and you can do it with creating setting boundaries and creating space for yourself. So I mean, I think you as well, Judith, I have to say, like I told you, I wonder how you manage everything and how you with three kids and and work and now starting a podcast. I think it's great, and that's very inspiring. So I take a little bit from everyone that I meet and interact with.
Right. This was not, I didn't pay Prachi to say
Yeah.
this to get some self love on my podcast. So I'm curious though, because I work with Gen Zers as well. What is something that inspires you about them?
I love that Gen Zers are so fearless and they
Yeah.
speak up their mind,
Yeah.
and I mean, whoever, no matter who is in the room, they have an opinion, then they will communicate it. I think early on in my career, I was often very aware of what I should say and if I should say something and how I should say it, because there was this stigma or maybe this notion that, oh, if you say the wrong thing, it might not be right in the situation. But I think I love that fearlessness and that they go after, and they're very woke. They're the woke culture, woke generation of our times. And I think the colleagues or the teammates that I work with, the Gen Zers, I love that when you work with them, they will just say if something is not right or question the approach or be like, why are we doing something, why are we doing it like this and why not like this. I love that. I think that's something that we need more of, and to have that conversation, not to always follow authority but to question it and then collaborate, right? It's not also about questioning in a critical way, but bringing in a different perspective and then collaborating. And I think that's why the combination of Gen Zers with Gen Xers and boomers and us, I think it's this cross generational teams can be so powerful because we bring in different perspectives and different experiences to the table. So
Right.
often we have conversations and meetings internally to think about how can we solve a particular challenge. And I think and then take that towards the client. And I think Gen Zers can also be an asset to bring in that fresh perspective towards clients as
Very
well.
true.
Projects that I've worked on, I think they are very good and quick at bringing in new ideas and creativity, making sure that as a leader that you would give them the role that they can shine and utilize their strengths as
Right.
well, so that they can stay motivated and excited about the value that they bring in. Because often, when someone's starting out in the career as a junior, maybe you don't want to just make them feel like they are creating slides and they are just doing what you tell them to do.
Right.
But when you ask for their opinion and be like, what do you think here, and are we going in the right direction, and you'd be surprised that they might have very interesting and valuable input as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've actually seen a little bit of a change in that, how that's also being perceived in organizations now. Like, I think when we started out, it wasn't that normal to ask the junior, like, hey, what do you think about,
Mm,
how we should do this stakeholder engagement or how we should do this training? But it seems to be more becoming part of meetings as well, where the
yeah.
partner or client executive will actually ask the youngest person in the room, like, hey,
Mm.
what do you think? And they're also listening. So it's been a positive development to see that.
Exactly. That's so true, Judith, because I think the managers and the leaders that I've worked with on projects in the past, I think they've modeled such good leadership behavior, and
Yeah.
managers that I have taken that for me and been a more open leader rather than an authoritative leader, and really changing and becoming less hierarchical, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and I think there's also different scales that people now ask for leaders. I went to a milestone course. The facilitators were asking, would you like to see in a leader? And empathy, collaboration,
Mhm.
understanding, inspiration. And I asked, how does this differ 10 years ago? Because the
Mm,
facilitators have been facilitating for a long time. And
mm,
they were different in like
mm.
authoritative, guiding, project managing, to more just being about empathy and about bringing people together. And I was like, oh, thank God, Prachi and me will be safe because we are unchanged.
Yeah.
That's one of our strengths. Nice to see
Yeah.
how this is what people are expecting from leaders.
Yeah, that's true, to create that sense of psychological safety. And
Yeah.
I think so. I also read this study. It also shared how roles of managers and leaders are changing a lot, and you
Yeah.
don't just need someone to tell the teams what to do, but create a supportive, high performing environment for the teams they work in, and being able to also manage hybrid teams now with AI and humans. I think that's
Yes.
also a new skill, because now it's not just
Yeah.
humans in your team, but how do you manage and also recognize and promote experimentation and working together,
Yeah.
and augmenting with technology. I think as leaders, you also promote using AI tools that can help teams, and recognizing and acknowledging the team members for their creativity. They recognize the teammates to collaborate with the AI technology and bring results. So I think setting those clear expectations and roles, I think that's also becoming very important as a leader
Yeah.
to manage.
Yeah. Is that something that you're already applying in your projects? So this is what I expect from you, and this is how you should be using AI.
Mm,
It might be something like that needs to be more explicit at the beginning of a
mm.
project. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I think so, because now I think it's a given that people use AI as well. It's becoming now slowly the new Google, right? And I think it's important to have that
Right.
expectation conversation, because there are certain
Yeah.
set of AI tools that we can use, and I think I also encourage my teams to leverage these tools and
Hmm.
give certain directions of how you could use those tools. And it's one thing to use the tools, but then also knowing to check the input and
Right.
use your experience to then change it and enhance it, because I think often you can't just use the output that's given by AI. And so I think enabling and training the teams to use AI the right way is key, because it is an advantage that we should use. Otherwise, it also makes you at a disadvantage in the space that we are in.
Right. Yeah. And how have you used recently AI in for like change management deliverables, for example? I think communications, it's
Mm,
something that I use it for. I will still write what I think, and then I'm like, can you enhance it? Can you make it more professional, more engaging, more sassy?
yeah.
Anything else like stakeholder engagement, maybe change metrics, ship alignment.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of use cases that we are testing. And I think definitely for communication, that's something I use as well. But in change management, I mean, we have creating training materials and scripts. I think you can use them for a change narrative story to have as a basis to have first ideas.
Yeah.
So, and I think the skill of then prompting becomes very important, because you
Yeah.
want to prompt correctly and take care of also the data protection guidelines and so on.
Yeah.
But I think that's something to be mindful of. But I think there's a lot of deliverables and activities we do in change management that AI can support and give a 60% draft, actually, that then you can update with the help of a human and then get to finished product. So I think change narrative, training material development, change impact assessment would be more difficult to do, or stakeholder
Yeah.
assessment probably not. But
Yeah.
I think any sort of communication assets would be valuable and speed up. And I mean, we have these AI videos that are also now AI avatar videos that could simplify our videos so much. And we created videos with Camtasia long ago entirely, with
Right.
writing the script and demo and everything.
Yeah.
And now I think there are tools out there where you can submit a script and it makes an entire video.
For the Gen Zers, we had to write the scripts, come up with the idea, put the slides together, put it in a video, paste it, cut it, like like it would take weeks, right, to make those learning
Yeah.
and training videos for the project that we did.
Yeah, I think one video took us 1 or 2 days at least, or yeah, that's
Yeah, to create it.
yeah.
And then there were like a lot of review cycles,
You-
and you have to remove things manually and place it differently.
Yeah.
And you're like the note taking, right? Like as an analyst,
Mm,
I would just, yeah, that was the first things. Like you would just take notes, and that's kind of
yeah.
it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
what are some of the things that change management professionals coming out of school are going to do? Because it's not the note taking, like it's working with AI, but
Mm,
I do think that there is value in taking notes and listening to the conversations. And so, yeah, I don't have an answer, but it is something that I'm thinking about. What's going to
yeah.
be the new skill set for change management professionals that are just starting?
That's such a good point because when we started out, it was also creating slides and communications. And I also worry that if we rely on AI too much to give the first draft and everything, I think it takes away the skill of thinking deeply.
Right.
And and there's so much value to not taking help from anything outside, but sitting and writing and connecting the dots yourself, because that's a great skill and brain exercise that we have to do and should not forget. So I agree. I think that's a worry I have as well, is that the
Yeah.
new generation will be so used to using AI that they would miss the skill to just think for themselves and then come up with ideas. Maybe an answer could be to really, upskill yourself to do the things without the help of AI and create that first draft yourself and then use AI to help it and enhance it.
Yeah.
Because I think if we use AI in the first go, it takes away your agency to think
Yeah.
and your agency to take action, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like we shouldn't give up that agency to someone outside of you, because
Yeah.
our brain is the strongest asset we have.
Right. It's like, oh my God, I love this quote from like someone that like showed up at, I don't know, was it the Emmys or something, and or the Oscars, and they were like, "What are you wearing? What's
Yeah.
the most expensive asset?" She's like, "My brain." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's me. That's me." Like, yes, it's
Yeah,
the brain.
exactly.
Just value
Yeah,
the brain, not the looks or whatever. But
exactly.
yeah, no, that's a good one. My team members gave a presentation on AI, how it evolved and everything, and yeah, some of the things to think about in change management. It was one of the fears, and she's a Gen Zer. One of the
Hmm.
fears that she said she had was the critical thinking skill. Where is that kind of going to go? And I thought it was really good that she was thinking about that, especially because she's so used to using all these
Hmm.
AI tools. And
Yeah.
she said to us as the group, like, I actually do create things myself
Hmm.
first and then I have AI to look at it, because she reads a lot of research, and she was saying that, the brain is like a muscle. So you need to
Hmm.
exercise
Exactly.
it. And if you don't continue to exercise it, it's,
Exactly.
yeah, going to
Hmm.
degress. So I was happy to see that she already like thought about that,
Hmm.
actively using it just in the way that you're describing it. But I don't think a lot
Hmm.
of people are aware of that.
And that's great actually that, yeah, she's doing that, because I think we all need to embed some activity into our work and day where we are actually challenging our brain, and it could be in the form of writing or creating a podcast or
Yeah,
creating art, but using that brain without the help of technology.
right.
Otherwise, yeah, we will lose that in the future.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. During your career, was there a time during your change management career where you really felt stuck? And
Hmm.
what did you do to overcome it?
I think like there have been, I think in the line of work we do, there are often projects that are very complex, and and the scope is huge. There's a lot of elements to think of, and we have a lot of responsibility to the success of the project as well, right? And I think in one of the projects where I was leading the part of change, I think there it was very difficult because the situation with the client was implementing a new technology across their entire organization,
Yeah.
and they needed to change basically the entire a workforce and how they work. And I think the context was challenging. It was also in a German environment. And I think I had a great team, fortunately. And I think during that time, I was a challenging project. Felt that I needed, because I felt a sense of responsibility to the success of the program, I felt a lot of pressure and stress as well to
Yeah.
to perform and do a good job. And I think during that time, it really helped to talk to the leaders, to be open about it and to ask for help as well, because I think often we feel like we have to do everything ourselves. And I think you'd be surprised when we are honest and we ask our teams or leaders and or our colleagues and share this, that they can offer help and advice that could really ease the process. So I
Right.
think I really appreciated also the leaders who believed in me, who supported me through that, and gave me that support and encouragement that I can do it, and gave that feeling that it is normal to feel like this, because there are complex situations, and it's also not easy often what we do, and
Yeah.
managing different priorities and stakeholders, and making sure that the client is happy but also your team feels good and you're delivering good work.
Yeah.
It can be a lot. So I think in that moment I felt like, okay, I don't know if I can do it, and it feels too difficult. I don't know, maybe I should take a break. I think during that time I took some break, but I also, instead of giving up in that moment, I think I said, no, let's power through. It's tough, but let's ask for help, and it can be done. So I was grateful for the teammates that I had and the people I worked with who guided me through that process.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you're afraid to ask for help. How is this going to reflect on me? Can
Actually,
actually be super powerful. And people,
yeah,
especially leaders that have probably gone through a million of those situations
exactly.
and are like,
Yeah.
oh, this is how you should think about it. Or,
And it's so good to be honest and transparent that, okay, I am struggling with this,
yeah,
and I think this is what could be done. But maybe if you have advice, and I think having those conversations openly and authentically is so important.
yeah.
And the change community, I think, is very, very supportive and amazing. So
In your work with clients, what is some or one of the biggest misconceptions that you feel that they have had about change management?
I think this one, maybe you can also relate to it, is often people think that change management is just communication and training, and you just, communicate to people and train them, and that's it. But I think
Yeah.
there's so much more to that, right? So
Yeah.
it's, I think we take, it's really a combination of psychology and neuroscience and behavioral science to understand human behavior and to see how we can resolve it. And I think that's really a misconception, because change management can be very strategic and analytical as well,
Right.
to know, okay, what's the next right step. Because often, people, transformation success of technology or any transformation, often it's the unawareness or the people that, or the people resistance that block the success of such a transformation, rather than the technology or the topic itself. And I think what's really interesting and it's amazing is that in the conversations I have with clients now, they see the value of change, and they see that
Good.
they know that change is so important. And recently had a workshop with a client where everyone in the room, it was the program leads and the product owners in the room, they all acknowledged that they know how important change is, and that's why they want to learn about it at the start of the journey, to
I
know
love
how
it.
to bring. Yeah, and
What
you
a
remember, like, back
change.
then. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
5 years ago, change was the last thing that people thought about. They thought, oh yeah, okay, we have everything, now we need someone to communicate and train the people.
Right.
But that
Yeah.
perception is changing, and I love that. And I think in all the conversations I'm having now, people understand it and they are prioritizing it, and it's
Yeah.
part of the conversation in boardrooms. And I think I also read an interesting statistic of the LinkedIn data, which said that in the last 10 years, like, roles that are titled change management in the industry have grew by 200%. So I think,
I love it.
yeah,
Job security
exactly.
right there. I need to link that statistic. So if you have that article for me, please let me know because I like to
I
include it in
will.
the show notes. I recognize that as well. First 4 or 5 years of my career, a lot of the times I had to advocate for why
Yeah.
there is a change team. What are we doing? And I think to some extent it is important because, yeah, it's a little bit finance. Like, I know it has to be there, but what do they really do? Like, I have seen progress of it just being an afterthought, really having to explain it from end to end and trying to get your foot in the door to it at least being considered and
Yeah.
being part from the very beginning. Yeah.
And I think also clients are realizing, or organizations are realizing that, I mean, they are often spending millions on these transformation projects, right? And getting and it's a huge effort. Adoption is key, and the people and the adoption is what gets you the return on investment that you're looking for. Often, if you implement a technology and no one uses it after go live, then it also affects the KPIs and the business metrics. And I think
Right.
it's in the best interest of the sponsors and the leaders to also invest in change, because that's what will get the value realization and the ROI that they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a lot of risk mitigation. And I'm working on a project that's a year, and I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that we were included from the very beginning.
Hmm.
It's massive and it's high level, but at least you can already see a couple of themes popping up where you're like, this is going to be really big, and people are probably how people are going to feel. And it's really ultimately about de-risking the massive investment that companies are doing, whether that's different organizational structure or behavioral changes or tech implementation.
Hmm.
Like if they're making a massive investment, they're 2 to 5 years out, 5 to 10. If they include us from the very start, we can already understand the sentiment and plan way better for it than just
Hmm.
let's do this in 6 months and just implement it. The last question that I have, I call these the change smart moves, and I always do them at the very end. Regardless of your background or your career path, years of experience that you have, but it's like a change smart move for any change practitioner.
One thing that's really important, and briefly touched upon it, is what we do is it's really about the people and the career that we have in change. And I think building strong relationships and nurturing those relationships early on is so important. So I think also in my career, I mean, I've made great connections throughout, and I've been in touch with it, and I think that opens up so many doors and opportunities. It's important because networking can also seem negative because you're trying to get something from someone, but I think this building relationships, it's important to like also give more to that relationship rather than taking. So
Right.
being aware of what value can you give the other person, identify, okay, maybe this person is thinking or has this problem or question. Well, is there some way I can help them with my expertise, or maybe connect them to someone I know?
Yeah.
And I think these actions can really multiply and help you a lot in your career moving forward. So I think building those relationships, but trying to give value wherever you go, I think it's a very smart move, and of course done authentically. But I
Yeah.
think it's important, so I also try to see, okay, in any relationship, is there some way that I can help that person? And I think people are in general very open to help as well. So I think we have a great community and people around. Bringing your expertise and knowledge to the group is key.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Something that would come to mind now, yeah, realize or reflect on what is your priority. I think setting those priorities for yourself and direction is really important, and
Yep.
setting boundaries in the career, I feel like that can help you create a balance. And I think
Right.
we should all define for ourselves what does success look like, because we often to others and think that's what success is, but no, we have to have our own definition of success. Now my definition of success has also changed a few years ago to now, and I feel like now success for me is when I feel balanced, when I'm doing work that excites me and that it's in alignment with my values, and that I can work on interesting projects with interesting people. And I
Yep.
think that's more important than any titles or achievements. That's something we should remember and just enjoy our careers, because it's about having fun as well.
Yeah,
And
I love that. Yeah, I feel the same way.
yeah.
Also combining it with enjoying your personal life. Like I think it's
Hmm.
for me it's definitely blended in some ways.
Yeah, we should just relax and enjoy the ride.
Right.
With that energy you can do more and give more value, and I think that's important. So yeah, having fun and not forgetting your personal life.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. For the listeners out there, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, Prachi Jain, and happy to connect. If you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts also to what we talked about, or any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to have a chat and connect with fellow change makers and any generation. I think I love to have these conversations, and yeah, and I really enjoyed the conversation as well. Thanks so much, Judith, for having me and for doing this. I think it was great, and we talked about a lot of important and topics as well.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, what a good conversation with Prachi Jain. I have three key takeaways that I like to close this episode with. At any point in your change management career, first one, it is okay to take a break, either in the form of a vacation to rest, enjoy, and reset, or like Prachi did, take a sabbatical, take time for a little bit longer, and assess if what you're doing in the world of change is still aligned with what your personal goals and values are. The second one is the unique you. We are in a diverse world of industries, transformation projects, the type of transformations that you're doing. And with that, I think the beauty in this field is that there is a variety of couple of unique skills that make you the change practitioner that you are. Look into the concept of skill stacking or go back to revisit what Prachi is sharing in this episode about that. We all have those specific set of skills that make you unique. Lean into those and use them as well for your personal branding. And then thirdly, critical thinking skills in the age of AI. Don't forget about exercising your brain. Also make sure your colleagues, the leaders that you work with, the practitioners that you are managing are practicing that muscle. And also think for yourself when you ask your AI friend to write that leadership communication asset. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for being here and for your support as always. Please rate my show. It really helped me with my podcast ranking. Feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn. Thanks for your support again, and I will see you next time.